All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are going to wrap up week 8, which happened 2 weeks ago. So we've been on the summer break, but we had New York over Life West. Colorado went and beat the All Blues 24-10, and then North Shore over Twin City Amazons 54-0. And that did change the standings. They didn't update it on the website, but I think it puts Colorado into first over the All Blues by maybe 4 points. And I'm not sure what else it shifted, so I'm not that good of a source of information. Sorry. Too much math. We need Peter. All right, advantage. And Alexis, you were the first person to ask me if you could go first, so you get it.
I don't remember asking that, but yeah.
Okay, well, again, maybe it was Lee. It was Lee.
Yes, it was me.
Okay. Lee asked for you.
Great, perfect.
But this should be a pretty quick call for everybody, so.
Okay, cool. Another not great game for the Amazons. Yeah. High penalty count as well. Lee and I talked a fair amount about that. A lot of it related to the breakdown, and some of the like triggers that I can use for better recognition. So the two clips that I have, one is for the breakdown and one is for the scrum. And what I want to talk to the group about is what other people do for their like checklists or their triggers.
Okay, Lee, anything from you?
I really enjoyed the discussion with her this week. Just really good. I don't know, it's one of those tough games where it is one-sided and it's easy to go real philosophical on stuff, right? Because you want the best game possible. But yeah, it was a great discussion and enjoyed it very much. It was it's a tough game when you have that kind of scenario for 80 minutes, you know.
Yeah, I watched it. There was some difficult things in that one. All right, Alexis, which one do you want to go with first?
We can start with the breakdown one. So this is just a clip of a breakdown, but the theme is kind of consistent throughout the game.
So green brought it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then white counterrucked, and then everyone kind of fell over and it was pretty messy, which was again a theme. And then white playing on the ground. So I signed playing on the ground, but I probably could have done like a hands in. I would have communicated just as well. And then I was probably too far away. I could have managed that by being closer better, because that just took a really long time for ball to get out or for me to make a decision. So I was wondering, so what I've been taught before for like a checklist at the breakdown is the tackler, the ball carrier, and then arriving players. Part of the conversation that Lee and I had that I found really helpful was triggers for recognizing the tackler. So things like if there's no body movement from the player who's on the ground who just made the tackle, that means they're probably not moving out of the way. If the arriving players are like having to step over someone, or if the 9 can't use the ball like as soon as they want to. But what I wanted to ask the group was, what are other people's triggers at the breakdown for specifically the tackler, but if you want to do any of the other pieces in the checklist, I'd love to hear what other people do.
Just to start off, Alexis, were you talking at all? Do you talk normally? Is there like a level of communication you do at all, or you're like they're big girls, they know what they're doing?
I usually chat. I don't think I'm too chatty, or at least I hope I'm not, but I'm definitely not quiet. So in that piece, it's me yelling like white out because I knew that green took the ball in. So yeah.
So yeah, kind of like you were saying, I like to talk because I don't want to penalize everything. I feel like if there's good continuity and like there's no disruption for the attack, I'll let it kind of go. If
Right.
it's like taking a little longer than it should, then clearly someone is disrupting to the point where like they can't get the ball away or they're, it's stuck. And that could be a tactic or it just could be just obliviousness. So that's probably my trigger is let the attack do what they want, talk the defense out of it if I can. But if it's still taking too long because it's the defense, then I'm talking more or I'm penalizing because it's just taking too long and we want to play.
Sure.
And how do you know if it's taking too long?
I can't tell really well where the ball is available here, but if it's available at the back and the attack is just you kind of waiting there, letting their pods sack up or whatever, then that's on them to take longer. But if it's not playable because the defense is not getting away or they're infringing or they're still like falling over, then it's taking long because of the defense. And that's when I want to either say like away, hands away, or I'm blowing it up because they're not attack isn't able to play anymore. Are you looking for like a time frame or just what my
No,
trigger is for?
well, yeah, that's because I think sometimes we have these concepts of like, well, if it takes too long or if da 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 da, but it's subjective, right? Because it depends on the situation. And so I always try to get people to drill it down, which is a Mike Cobb thing, to drill it down, right? So that it's like if you had to quantify what that means because because like you were asking, it's not necessarily it's a time, it's like what does it mean to actually take too long, right? And being able to find a metric that you can measure even if it's anecdotal on the game, right? So that's why I ask.
Okay. Anybody else have anything brilliant? Okay. So, quick ball, 3 seconds or less, right? If the nine's waiting around to play the ball, then we need to look and see if the defense has done something to hold it up. Happy? Next one, scrum.
Yep. Scrum.
Okay. Oh, we can see this one. That's a better clip.
Yeah.
Intro.
Could you go back to not full screen because I wrote my blurb in there and now I don't remember what it said.
No worries.
Yeah. So I was not as in conversation with Lee. The setup could be more regulated or like a little bit more strict on that. So I was wondering what other people's checklists are. Mine has just been crouch, see if their shoulders are lined up, see if their hips are lined up, bind, see if there's space between their shoulders, and then set. But it sounds like there could be a lot more to keep an eye on for, and that the better you have the setup, the better that the scrum will be. So in this example, the white tight head is overextending, and then it ends up being not a great scrum. And then there's another question about the break foot, but we can talk about that after we talk about this.
Hey, Alexis, this is Tim. So I'll say that the scrum in general is a pretty, big thing to kind of communicate. So it's like you don't want to take off too much. And actually, Len, who's on the call, was really helped me through this. And so it's really focusing on like just some things. Like you can only kind of focus on certain things, and then as you build that, you can kind of add to it. But the biggest thing that I got out of a lot of this about the scrums is like the setup. If the setup is bad, the scrum's never going to get better. It's never going to be not great and then get better as it goes through. So if you can start with the best possible setup, then you've given them the best chance. If you feel like there's something off, especially at the start of the game, you can fix it then. But I used to be like, oh, that's okay. We'll just kind of, and then, but it's never going to get better. And that was something that has resonated through my head is like, the setup's great, then at least it starts great. It's never going to start terribly and end great, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I like that. It'll never get better. I mean, I don't like that, but the way you phrased it.
Hey Alexis, it's Kat.
Okay.
I will also say like something I've realized to Tim's point, but also away from Tim's point is I had moments where I'd go in and be like, I need the gap to be like this far or whatever exactly. And the teams just didn't want to do that. So I do let like a little bit of, okay, I'll let you guys try to figure it out. But like, right, you've got your standards where it's like you can be within this standard. And if you go to the scrum, you set them up and they're like way outside, you can bring them back and be like, okay, you got to be better for my picture. But if they're just outside your standard, but they're both happy with it and you're getting good pictures, like don't try to micromanage. Because I see a lot of refs being like, no, stand up again. I need it to be this. And it's like, if they're both happy and you're going to get a good platform from whatever they're both doing, I wouldn't go down, like I try to avoid going down that path of trying to micromanage because then you spend half your time setting up scrum standards that nobody can achieve, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like have your standard, but have like a little bit of like wiggle room, just a little. So if they're way outside of it, be like, no. But if they're a little outside of it, be like, if you guys can do it and it looks good, and like Tim said, it's a good platform, we can see what works for you.
Yeah, and Kat, that was something that came up a little bit was sometimes it's like I've never been a huge proponent of micromanaging. It's more been like, okay, well, okay, you guys want to scrimmage, but or scrummage, but like I need a little bit straighter push, right? And so if you can do that and it's not illegal and it looks okay, then that's great. So we did talk about that a little bit of like maybe just starting with a little bit more of like a generality of like, okay, well, if you want these things, then I need to see this something closer to this picture, and if you can do that, then jouer,
I love that. And like 100%, like if you want to do that, you got to do a little bit more of this. And it's like, I really like that kind of thought process where it's like, let's work together. I think that's great.
Yeah, because they know how to do this, right? So if you say it's not like this is their first rodeo. So if you say, okay, well, I need X, Y, and Z, then they'll look at each other and be like, okay, well, let's do that.
Perfect. I've got two good checklist resources too that I can send you, Alexis, for both of these. The scrum phase and the breakdown phase. Just remind me because I'll forget as soon as I get off this call. Do we want to discuss the breakfoot?
Yeah, so at least once, the green hookers set up with their left foot instead of their right. And I did not notice it right away and I'd never seen that before, so frankly was surprised enough that I didn't really manage it because I didn't know if they were allowed to do it or not. But Lee and I were looking at it as well, so it's the World Rugby says that you just need a break foot, but in our guidelines it says that it needs to be the right foot. I'm wondering like what standard should we set? Also, I don't understand why you would want to set up with your left foot.
So yeah, I'll address it. So she's striking with her left foot because the ball is coming in from the side that would make that left foot the one to strike with if you were to steal the ball on defense. Does that make
Sure.
sense? So our
Yep.
game management guideline just says right foot because that's the foot that you would usually use for the break foot because your ball would usually come in from the side that you strike. Most hookers would be right-footed. So
Yep.
I think it just says that because that's what most of them will do. So they could use either foot if they want to. And then she's actually leaving the foot in the tunnel. She's never taking that break foot back. So that's why that whole thing looks a little bit funny. but we don't want to chase that. It's not really material because the ball's put in by white, white hooks the ball, white gets the ball.
Sure.
Good? Yeah.
Just one other question for the break foot, if they really want to set up with their left foot. So normally you have your both hookers with their right foot to the left of the mark. If they want to use their left foot, should they be further away from the mark? Like just move them a little bit so that they're not.
I mean, if you're having a problem with headspace, yeah, if you're having a problem with headspace, then chase it. And if not, I would not spend my time worrying about it. Do other people have other thoughts? Pretty much okay. Yeah. Is that it for you guys?
Yeah, that's it for me, unless Leah has anything else.
Nope, good stuff. Loved it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the help.
Tim, you next.
Sure. So had a great game. It was really nice conditions. We played at Boxer Stadium in San Francisco, so big wide field. Obviously, you know, two of the top teams kind of facing off. So was great day of rugby in general. And yeah, I just went in with a mindset of like really making sure there was quick ball for both teams, making sure I kind of set a good standard, all the kind of general things. And then the game, well, it kind of goes in the first clip, but you know, it was pretty low. There was not a lot of penalties at the start, and I was really looking for some standards to set, and there just wasn't a lot. The ball was coming out very quickly, and teams were back. But we can go to some clips, but I'll let Kat chime in a little bit too.
Yeah, it was really good. Again, it was kind of like class rugby from both sides. From what we're seeing at this top teams is they're really policing themselves like really, really well, which as Tim said, makes it difficult when you're trying to like set your standard because that opportunity doesn't come when you want it to. And then you're left, you know, making a decision that like could be, you know, a cynical or like big moment decision, but it's kind of your first penalty in that area because those teams haven't done it yet. So it provides like a unique challenge, which I think Tim was faced with in this game. Outside of that, if anybody's looking for a masterclass of how to play advantage, particularly scrum advantage, Tim did it in this game. His feel for advantage was so good that it just like the game really flowed. And I was really, really impressed. So yeah, it was an exciting game, good game of rugby, and I think at the end of the day, the better team won.
Cool. Thanks for that, Kat. And that goes to the first point here. So, you know, I think there was maybe like 12, 13 penalties, and we're in the 70th minute. And so for me, like, I feel like there was, you know, some like, where could I have like put my stamp better in the game? And so here's a clip that, you know, this was an opportunity I think that I could have carded, but for me, it's like there hadn't been a penalty in a while, but that's not the recognition. That's not the trigger. The trigger should have been, these teams have been playing cleanly. Now they're doing something to disrupt. And, you know, so it's kind of like the opposite. You know, they're not offending a lot, so I don't need to clean that up, but they haven't offended. So that means they really know what they're doing. And then, so we'll watch the clip though. It was a little choppy on our end. I don't know if that was for anybody. It kind of looked like it jumped. Is that anybody else or?
Yeah. Let me see if I optimized for.
Choppy for me, but I blame hotel Wi-Fi. So
Yeah, I can optimize for video clip, which I didn't do. So let me see if that helps at all. Well, the interesting thing is that my advantage disappeared. There it is. All right, we'll see if this is any better.
Yeah, it looks a little smoother. So it
Such a
seems
good-
like a pretty minor kind of situation, but you know, at this point, Colorado they had maybe, you know, 6, 7 penalties the whole game. And then they're clearly obviously under a lot of pressure. And I think there could have been an opportunity to card here and set, you know, a really strong standard. But it just didn't click in my head, you know, oh, this is a clean game of rugby, low penalty count, let's just keep going. And you saw all blues kind of just kept going. But I don't know, Kat, I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on it because I think this was an interesting, more thought experiment and more thinking higher level of a game.
Yeah, I was like, so this is a cynical penalty. You've got this massive line break. She like goes off her feet, and I'm immediately like, oh, you know, cynical penalty, that's yellow card. But as Tim said, like we hadn't had a breakdown penalty in like 30 minutes. And it's like, man, you're pulling out a big gun to shoot that trigger when you know you're used to that, like, oh, you've got breakdown problems and now there's a cynical one. It's very easy to card this. So we just kind of had that talk about like, remember what's on your radar. Like if it's repeat infringements, it's one thing, but a cynical infringement's always a cynical infringement. And again, like you can judge it as you want if you don't think this is cynical, etc. But like it was a really good conversation, and it's just I don't have a answer. As I was typing it out, I was like, oh, is this cynical? Is this worth a yellow card? And I was like, I'm glad I'm not Tim, because I don't want to know if I would have pulled the yellow card out or not. Like I think I might have done what Tim did. But anyway, it was really good kind of thought process.
Such a good clip.
For the group.
Sorry. It's such a good clip for expected outcome too. Like I knew Colorado was not going to come from their side of the ball, but then she does, but then she's off her feet. So yeah.
And it's also like the 70th minute of the game, like the All Blues, you know, I think at this point, maybe they were a try down or it was like still a close game. And it's just like a really tough decision because it's like, I throw a yellow card. That's a big decision at that point. There hadn't been a lot of penalties. So anyways, it's just things to kind of chew on and think about. So.
Yeah. I like the yellow card here, I think.
I'd like if I didn't have to give it to somebody else
Yeah.
can give it, and I can be like, oh wow, big call, big pants. Tim over there is like, yeah.
So number 2 goes to line out, and so throughout the game, I had kind of I asked Kat, I was like, could you tell from my like voice and my like, could you tell I was frustrated? She's like, oh yeah, easily. So I was frustrated with the number 1 jumper. And so this is one of the first lineouts. But what happens in subsequent lineouts is I keep telling the Colorado prop to give space. And the conversation was put it on the players and not me. Also, like we'll watch it here. I'm a little bit lazy getting to that lineout. I'm kind of letting people set up. And Kat brought up, you know, why don't you get there and, you know, be a little quicker on it and, you know, demand them to kind of set the lineout quicker instead of putting pressure on yourself, put it on the team. And so but we can watch this first one. You can see I'm like a little lackadaisical and, you know, in the setup where I could have been a little more prompt and set it up and been a little proactive, I guess. Hold on. Yep. Both teams, take a little quarter step this way. There we go. Back.
I feel like my internet's part of the problem. That clip totally glitched for me.
Oh, that was fine for me.
It was fine for me, actually. Yeah.
Very strange.
But I guess the theme of this is that I could have maybe been a little more proactive and a little more, because I end up being frustrated towards the end of the game. I keep telling the prop, and I never do a free kick. In my head, I was like, the next time she does this, I'm going to do a free kick, but that was in like the 50th minute. And I maybe could have done that a lot earlier in the game and not been so frustrated, which maybe would lead to other frustrations in the game. Luckily, I don't think it did, but it could. So, Kat, anything on that?
No, it's almost kind of like goes back to what we were talking with Alexis and Lee at the scrums is like if you go and you set up the first one and give them a little leeway if they want to take a little leeway, sure. But always have that like mom card in your back pocket of like, okay, if you guys aren't going to agree on something, I'll come in and tell you exactly how you're going to do it. But like getting there, you're like, okay, you're here. All right. You set up nice and well. Awesome, carry on. But if they don't do that and they're like wasting their time, etc., like, okay, fine, I'll tell us exactly how we're doing it today, which is, not how they want to be treated. But it's like I'm gonna give you the options to do it. But yeah, sorry, a lot of rambling. Just like a way to speed up the game a bit. Think if you're quick to the mark, right here, first defender. Here's my mark. You can stand here, attack. You can take your space as you'd want. Okay. And now we're good. And then warm them once if they're not doing it. And then follow up with a free kick. But put the problem back on them. Don't like let it become your problem. Because that's what Tim did. Because then he's like, I'm frustrated because I didn't just put it on the players. And then when the players kept doing it, it was their problem.
So the last clip, number 3 here. This has happened to me a couple times and in a couple games this year. And maybe I don't know if I didn't recognize it, but we'll play the clip and you'll kind of see the defense gets set up and then the ruck moves a little bit forward and the team doesn't adjust to it and there's kind of an offsides and the kind of the conversation with Kat and I was like, when do you play through these? When do you like put your stamp down on it? So we can play the clip and you can kind of see. And there's a pretty clear offsides here that I missed, but. To be honest, the player was offsides, gave him a little bit of a gap. But it was just one of these things where the ruck goes, the defense kind of spreads out, but then the ruck kind of moves a step forward and the defense doesn't adjust. So the team kind of sets up for a ruck there, but then the player kind of rolls and, that's another conversation, but. He was clearly offsides here as well.
Yeah, you had several of them, I think, pretty well offside.
So if we go back like a little bit, you can kind of see like they think the ruck's going to be at a different point. They think the ruck's going to be there. They're kind of setting up to that, and then they look up, but then, the player kind of falls forward or takes a little roll, which I'm okay with in this situation. And so the back of the ruck is another half meter, and the team doesn't adjust. So I could have easily called a offside there, and I think that would have been a good call. In the end, though, this 2-player kind of gets sucked in, and that's where the gap is. So they actually get front foot. But I do think setting a standard would have been better call here. So.
Yeah, this may be the kind too where the team gets upset at you for not playing advantage because they have ball and go forward through the gap. You know what I mean?
And then there's like super quick ball right after. So, they actually kind of get their advantage out of it. But that's all I have. Kat, anything?
Awesome. Good clips. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And okay, Lindsay's in Mexico. So Lynn is going to be giving us quick synopsis of the match and leading us through the clips.
Yeah, quick synopsis. This is a pretty interesting match to watch in that, Life West was fairly dominant in all of the loose play, but New York was just killer at the set pieces. I mean, they just destroyed and disrupted scrums at will. Life West didn't want anything to do with a line out. New York kind of had the edge there as well. It was you see the score was 20-7 at the half to Life West. But then Life West got into a bit of a foul play run, a bunch of high tackles, then a yellow card, then a red card shortly thereafter. We don't get to see the yellow, but the red was as clear a red as you could possibly have. It was pretty much their undoing. Lindsay was playing around with the silent treatment, not talking to the players, and that might have caused them to chirp a little bit, and working on her positioning, getting that wide positioning, which caused a bit of an awkward moment that I added a clip on.
All right. Added a clip. Let's see if we refresh. Yep. Which one first?
You know, none of them are kind of storytelling. So let's just go with that one that you're on, the reasonable expectation to gather the ball. Need 50-50 to see what everybody might have done here.
Hold on.
See it again. Do we want a waterfall?
Hold on.
Oh, I stopped it too. Okay. On the count of 3, we can put in knock on or IKO, I guess, for intentional. Either IKO or KO. Does that work?
Works.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, we got mostly knock-ons. We got 3 people who want it to be intentional. Does anybody want to talk me through their thought process? Almost. Are we all muted?
Hi, it's Tyler. I'm gonna give a stab at this. So I went with intentional knock. I think that player from New York was in a poor position, stuck one arm out to just try and disrupt things. Because I think if they don't get a hand on that, I think there's one other defender out there, and it's a 2-on-1 with the All Blues under pressure, or Life West. I don't know these teams well enough yet. With the attack under pressure 5 meters out, I think this winger is just in a poor position if they miss this to make a tackle, and I think it's going to be a fairly substantial line break here. I don't think they do enough to convince me that it's just a knock on.
Risk versus reward. It's tough, man. That's probably 50-50 call. Oh, when I watched it the first time in real time, I felt like she had a reasonable chance of gathering the ball.
Yeah, and that was my take too. We were about
like
an inch away from an interception and a try. Like
I don't know
the
how
hand
she
was
doesn't.
underneath.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is I'm actually like, why didn't she catch the ball? It's like in her palm.
I think one of the triggers for me as well is if it's a short, sharp pass where it like is very quick versus those long looping passes where the ball is slowed down a lot. So the really short ones where you get one hand and it's like basically from the player passing it that is more deliberate versus the long looping passes are better chance of catching. And so I think they try to look at like a lot of the long looping ones as just knock-ons.
That makes sense. In review, what did Lindsay think? Does she feel like she got it right?
Yeah, and I both she and I felt knock on.
Okay. I always want everything to be an intentional knock on, so it's rare for me to think knock on, but I do think I buy that one. Head contact. This is her red card? No.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
I didn't see the clip, but yep.
I think this is the yellow. Doesn't the red happen on the other part of the field?
No, yellow we don't see. Yellow we just watched a lovely silver pole. But I think this is going to be my red card.
Oh yeah.
Advantage. It's number 15. Oh, we're forward. Yeah.
Straight on. We'll try to get it lower.
Yeah. I have direct contact. Definitely standing upright. So.
Like you want to do the lower elevation. So sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm not worried about it. My only thing is that a high degree of danger or not a high degree of danger? I think as there's clearly an injury and it was standing up, it's a high degree of danger for me. So I think it's going to be a red card. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think it was material, but I heard you.
That's fine.
Yeah. What time do you have on the clock? I was going by that for 17. I'm like 2 minutes behind. Okay. I get your captain and number 15. She did at the No, she did not. Number 15. So, ladies, I have head contact. It is foul play. I have a high degree of danger and no mitigation. Okay, so it's going to be a red card.
Can we also watch out for the shipping as well? That's difficult. She was running like as her teammate was blocking.
The run, yeah. I thought it was immaterial, but I did see player in front some. But yeah,
shipping.
I've never heard that word before.
I've never heard that. I was wondering.
All right. That was definitely the head contact process. Good job, Lindsay.
I guess for me, like one question that I would ask Lindsay is like, if you thought it was a red card, because she seemed pretty, pretty good conviction. Why didn't she just blow that up immediately? She kind of plays through it a little bit and then goes through, and then there's like another phase. And I feel like and I do agree with her. It's just it would have felt stronger if it was like right there instead of it felt like she played through it or she had a question in her head. I guess that's a question for Lindsay, but.
Yeah, we can look at it one more time too and see if like there was a clear break or something that was coming right there at the beginning. But yeah, it would be a good one to probably blow immediately. Let's see. Yeah, so New York did have 2 or 3 players coming on, so it's possible she thought they were going to exploit that gap and she was just going to give them the chance.
And it's important to note that the tackler that stopped the next phase was coming from the wrong direction. It's hard to tell with all this navy blue going on out there, but if you just look at orange moving forward, that tackler actually came from the other side to make the tackle. So it looked like we had a chance to do something, and this was always going to be red. I mean, this is the poster child for a red card.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many times we emailed to try and pin them down about which color jerseys they were bringing either. Navy on navy. This
clip is one I added. It's just a neat one to see. And Lindsay and I talked about this, and the feedback is she's working on the new positioning. This one, she might have been a bit too far. But it's that neat dynamic now when we're asking the referees to be a little bit further out and then make a mark at where the infraction happened. So we're pointing it and calibrating if maybe we're being a little too pedantic about where they take the mark.
Yep. It's over there. Over there. Over there. Where you were. Over here. Where the infringement happened.
What do you want?
Okay. There? Yeah. Thank you.
Right there?
Okay.
And I think that's just like I put it when we spoke, it's just a larger conversation. If you're going to be that far out and pointing to a mark, a foot to the right, let's get on with it.
Yep. I agree. Like within a meter, it's probably good enough. As long as they're not exploiting something on the way to, you know, score a try. So,
It does feel like teams are generally going quicker this year. I mean, I know the All Blues, that's like their thing this year, is they just like, as soon as it goes, they're trying to catch that team, like going back disorganized. And so I just feel like we should be aware of that for teams that are trying to take advantage, because when you pull them back for something like that, they're going to be really frustrated with us because we've taken away all that advantage. It's just something to think about.
All Blues in New York
Mhm.
also.
Yeah.
do a lot
And
of-
in this match, Life West was doing it because they wanted no part of the line out. So, they were just trying to get going because they weren't going to pull off lineouts. And the interesting juxtaposition in this one was New York had taken a couple quick taps from well off the mark and one about 2-3 meters in front of the mark. So, just again, calibrating what we want those to look like.
I think if you also look in that clip, the defense is already back 10. So it's like, what's the advantage that the team's getting by taking the tap versus like, then we just draw attention to ourselves as referees. Like, it's a different story if nobody's back 10 and they're clearly taking it off the mark and getting a massive advantage when they would have had to go back to the mark. So,
Yeah, great point. All right, I think that was everything for advantage and we're good. Thank you, Lynn. And then I just wanted to sort of double down. We're at the mid-season, so just remind ourselves of what our key focus areas are and what we're looking at in each of the key focus areas. So around safety, we are using the head contact process, and as Lindsay's clip showed us earlier, making sure we have the verbiage right, so we get the right outcomes. And then along with safety, just remember we are still using the old laws prior to the updates. So high tackle, has to be head and neck involved, right? None of the waist stuff that just came in. And then around neck safety, we're looking for the leading elbow. Gator rolls are still legal for us through the end of the season. However, if the player is moved by the head or neck, that's when we get an issue and we need to be giving yellow cards, right? So have awareness around the gator rolls. We do have 1 or 2 teams who are using them. Speed, we're going to hold the tackler to a high standard, make sure they roll away. When we have a jackler, we need to see a clear release, get hands on ball, supporting their own body weight with a lift for them to be rewarded. And the arriving players need to be from their side of the ball and on their feet. Space, daylight at the back of rucks and malls. I think teams are mostly policing themselves pretty well in this area, which makes it an easier place this year. The iFox, we've had a lot of those in front of kickers. Remember, we are still playing with the older laws, so they can't advance until they're put on side if they're in front of the kicker. And if they're offside under 10 meters, they have to be retreating. At the set piece, we are watching, so at the scrums and the lineouts, that the back lines are not up, that they stay back until that set piece is over. Scrums, we're looking for balance, we're looking for stability, and we want them to be pushing straight. Really no changes there from previous years. Line out maul, let's get the setup right. At the maul, make sure we do not have obstruction. The defense has to have access to the jumper. And then during the contest, side entry and making sure there's no swimming up the sides. That's a lot in a real quick fashion, but I know we all know it, and just take a chance to look at it before we go into this weekend so it's fresh. Couple of shout outs this week. Jenny wants to thank everybody for the well wishes and the support. And also there was some advice apparently as they welcomed Quincy. And there I see a baby. Oh, sleeping. So cute. So little. Cool, cool. Thanks for sharing. Lindsay, big shout out for being in Mexico and doing the RAN U19-15s. Hopefully that's been a good experience. I've seen some pretty pictures. Mike and Millie both got MLR quarterfinal AR assignments. And Kat is in Canada doing test matches for World Rugby as an assistant referee right now. So really cool that so many people in our group are doing so many amazing things. It's great. Let's see what else. Okay, in the next couple of weeks, we were supposed to have 4 weeks of matches now and then a week off, but unfortunately, one of the games for this weekend gets bumped and it will be on the off week, which will be August 10th. So we are pretty much back to regular games on Saturdays and calls on Thursday nights for the next couple of weeks. We were supposed to have that 1 week off. We may go ahead and take that. I will keep you posted on that. So this is what the weekend looks like. Tyler's doing All Blues Life West, which is always a contentious match. So good luck going out to do that one, Tyler. Hopefully your travel will be good. And then LV does Chicago, New York. And then the postponed match was Millie's game, Colorado, Boston. So that's round 9. I'm going to stop recording now. If I can find it.